Okay, here we are in the driveway with the OMC Chevrolet engine. After the successful run in the driveway, it's ready to, finish up and put in the boat. We have everything done. The entire harness was installed. All the final checks have been done. I actually even had to replace a few more parts as I went along. For example, I noticed the lug on the starter was a little loose on the solenoid, so I went ahead and put a brand new solenoid in there. No sense doing it later. It's easy to do in the boat, but it's much easier to do here in the driveway. The cooler for the power steering was actually replaced as well. All new clamps all around. We actually have a new super coil here. That was there when I ran it in the driveway too, but now it's all hooked up correctly. All the ends of the wires have been sealed with liquid electric tape. That stuff's really great in case anybody has ever thought about using that stuff. It's really good. I mean, it sags a little bit, but if you plan accordingly, it's like really coating the wires with rubber. It's really nice. And once it's secured, it's literally everything proof. All the tie straps are in. Everything is good. Had a little bit of an issue with finding where the wires go on the alternator. There's two additional wires. I'm not too used to how these American cars do it, American boats rather do it, but I figured it out. It's not a big deal. So that's all done. Power steering pump's installed with a little stripe on there. Make sure it's spinning. Everything's good. The only thing I wasn't sure about is if I should leave these boots on for when I lower it in, but they do slide back and forth, so I should be able to find plenty of room to do it. All right. It is OMC, but it really is Chevrolet. And I wonder how many of these engines are actually out there in service. There's got to be a billion. I mean, if you think about it, worldwide, in the United States alone, there's got to be millions of cars driving around with Chevy V8s in them. That's amazing. I mean, how many there are. And they're really, really easy to work on. I mean, this really is a couple of caveats I had. But one thing I got to mention that was really interesting. When I went back to readjust my valves, I noticed one of the push rods wasn't loosening up as I loosened up the rocker top. And those of you that know what I'm talking about will understand this. These two bolts here, these go through the intake manifold. But if you're not careful, in other words, if you don't put the right ones where they're supposed to be, they will go through and actually contact the push rod inside the head. The bolt goes straight through, which I find, really dumb, because what happens is that, I mean, it didn't damage anything, but what happened was these two bolts right here were actually going through so deeply. I mean, I'm talking about maybe 1/8 of an inch deeper than they should have gone, that they actually contacted the push rods for, number 3 cylinder. And, they were still operating, but it scuffed up the push rod, and I had to actually go ahead and change that push rod. If you're not careful, you put a long bolt, you'll bend the push rod and damage the engine. I mean, only because those two bolts have to be the right length. And I know that, I label everything, and just so happened that I didn't put washers underneath those when I was doing the test to bolt them up, but I really thought that something had to be bolted to that. I thought that the accelerator linkage had to be bolted to that, but it turns out it gets bolted back here. But at any rate, that was something to look out for if you're doing an engine like this. I mean, basically, everything else is pretty straightforward. There's absolutely no leaks anywhere. Everything's dry. It's like you could blow dust off this engine. It's super dry, which I really, really like. This is one of my things. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I don't like oil leaks because, man, what a pain in the ass that is. Just oil dripping in the bilge and stuff. It's just first of all, it's dangerous, number one. Number two, it's bad for the environment. Number three, it's just something you don't need to happen to have your engine run low on oil, because when it does, something like this happens. It just blows up. One mistake I did make, cosmetic strictly, this bell housing here, I painted with a paint that's called, actually it's plastic dip paint. I can't really, well, let me see if I can reach it. Here it is. It's a paint called Plastic Dip. And it's really good stuff. And I have nothing bad to say about it, except don't put it in a place where it's going to be subjected to getting scuffed or damp or used or rotated or anything like that. And I guess that's common sense, but I didn't think that part was going to be moved. I sprayed it with this stuff, and it looks good, but every time you touch it, I mean, it just flakes off like, I mean, and I actually even sanded that thing down. So, yeah, nobody's going to see that. It's completely behind the engine, and it's like, you'll never, this is the only time you're going to see it. So anyway, it's still protected from the elements anyway. I figured it'd be nice in a wet environment, although it shouldn't be really wet inside the engine compartment, but nevertheless, it's a humid environment. One thing I'm going to do too, and I noticed, I'm going to just babble on forever until my friend shows up with his pickup truck. But anyway, this is the return line into the manifold that cools the exhaust and puts the water out of the boat. One thing I did notice, and I went to painstaking lengths to make sure that this thing has good circulation, and it does. But the thing is, I don't know, most people said they could touch these risers as the engine's running. But I mean, I kind of can, because I have pretty calloused hands. But let me tell you something. The rule was, I read the rule somewhere, like if you can keep your hand on there for 10 seconds, it's running cool. Let me tell you what happened. I run it, and the water goes in here, and of course goes through, and then comes up through the jackets, never contacting the exhaust. It also circulates around the exhaust and then out, and you can see it's a double pipe there, and it comes out above where the exhaust comes out. The exhaust comes out here, and the water comes out here. But this gets awfully hot. I mean, it gets hot. That, I mean, I can go like 1, 2, 3, 4, and I got to remove my hand. So what I'm going to do is there's a couple of knockout fittings here. I'm going to remove this, tee this off, and come in here and here, so that it cools both areas. And I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why that. I think this system is stupid, personally. I mean, I know people have been doing it for years, and it works. I just don't like it. I really wish they'd find another way to cool these engines better than they do. First of all, you got salt water going through, and this is the raw water cooled version, which means it takes seawater and it brings it through the engine and then back out. The freshwater cooled means it has a separate tank, like a car, like a radiator, and you're basically just cooling the water that's cooling the engine. So it's more complicated, but it does work better because your engine never contacts salt water, which is good. Because this case, you have to put a flush out and all that stuff, which means when I'm done running around the Gulf of Mexico, I hook a hose up to this, which is going to be plumbed into my boat, and there'll be a fitting on the transom. I could disregard what the pickup is doing on the boat, and hook a hose up to this and flush it out with fresh water, which is still not a great thing to do anyway, because it's still freaking water in your engine, but not antifreeze. So nevertheless, it's better than salt water. It's the lesser of the two evils. That's also been installed on this engine. I didn't install that. I just fixed it up and cleaned it. It was there already. And what they do is they take out the two drain on the block, and they install hoses on both sides so you could back flush it. It'll come out the same way through here, which subsequently goes through the Y pipe, which goes out the outdrive. All the exhaust and water on this engine gets put out through this area right here on the outdrive, which is, I don't know if you can see that back in there, and then some of it comes out the propeller, and some of it comes out the bottom of a rubber hose, which is a new one right there in the outdrive. So, to me, it's just such a barbaric system. I don't like it, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to change the rules. Far better men have designed this than me, so I'm not going to supposed to tell them how to work it. I just looking at it from the outside in. So anyway, thanks for listening to my babble, and I hope that these videos have helped anybody that has an intentions to do this. And whatever you think it's going to cost, double it, and then add $500. That's good advice. Trust me. Figure out what you think it's going to cost. Sit down at your kitchen table, do some math, and say you come up with a figure of $1,000, double that, and then add $500. And that'll be the magic number that you'll be around correctly. Because there's always going to be, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that, and then next thing you know, your budget is out the window. But another reason why I made these series of videos, is that I have a habit of buying and selling boats because I change my mind like the wind. So, I mean, if anybody wants to buy this boat down the road, he has full documentation about what I've done, and there's no fluff here. Many, many times you buy a boat, and everybody, I just rebuilt the engine. Sure you did. Bullshit. And that's exactly what people do. They bullshit. my jobs are not bullshit. I tell the truth. I never lie about what I do on engines. I do lie, but not about what I do on engines. And this engine is completely rebuilt. And I'm saying completely rebuilt with total confidence. The only thing that's not rebuilt are some of the accessories. When I say accessories, I mean like alternator, things like that. Alternator, maybe a belt at the time that you're going to do it, or maybe the water pump or something like that. But beside that, the internal workings of the engine are brand new and 0 hours at this point. Maybe, I'm going to say 45 minutes worth of use in the driveway. With that said, let's keep our fingers crossed that the insulation goes good. It doesn't fall into the canal when I'm putting it in. That would really suck. But here it is, ready to roll. Catch up later.